What if I told you that Meghan Markle isn't just obsessed with power and control, but she's also deeply paranoid? This is the reality of malignant narcissism, and once you see the signs, you'll never unsee them. In this deep dive, we'll break down why Meghan believes people are out to get her, how her paranoia fuels her manipulative and controlling behavior. I'll give you some real life examples of Meghan destroying relationships out of fear. We'll talk a little bit about the psychological patterns that make her so dangerous. And I'm going to conclude with a revealing and short analysis of my malignant narcissist stepmom. So let's break it down. But before we begin, here's the intro. Welcome to Revealing the Narc. Join me as I highlight narcissistic traits in celebrities and public figures. Everything here is in my opinion and not professional advice. If you enjoy the analysis, please like and subscribe. So I found this article just a couple of days ago, and it immediately reminded me of paranoia and narcissists and how I've experienced this with my stepmom, especially. So I thought it would be a good idea to go through this because I feel this paranoia is something that I've seen a lot with narcissists in my circle. The article is titled Meghan Markle Accused of Going from Diva Duchess to Paranoid Prima Donna as she launches witch hunt for whoever set her up to fail, even though they don't exist. So you can tell whoever wrote this article doesn't believe that anyone is actually setting Megan up to fail. And I think that's a very realistic way to look at it and analyze it. The article begins. A paranoid Meghan Markle is desperately trying to blame a crazy conspiracy theory for all of her recent personal and professional setbacks. Radar Online can confirm. The Duchess of Sussex seems to be falling to the pressures of launching a new business, new Netflix program, and new lifestyle. Right away, we see a problem. Instead of acknowledging that her career choices just aren't working, Meghan is convinced that there's a conspiracy against her. This is textbook narcissistic paranoia, a refusal to accept personal responsibility, and it's an obsession with external enemies. We've seen Meghan constantly rebranding, and this is a huge red flag in narcissists. She's tried archetypes. She's tried to be the Duchess of Sussex, a Montecito influencer, American Riviera Orchard, as ever, with Love Meghan, that other podcast that's coming out. I'm already exhausted talking about all of these avenues that she keeps trying and taking on different personas in each of them, and none of them are working. And in my opinion, it's because she's not being true to who she actually is, and that inauthenticity is something we all recognize. So, why does she keep jumping from one identity to another? And I believe it's because narcissists panic when their image doesn't work. The article continues. After a lengthy delay due to the Los Angeles wildfires, Markle's much anticipated new Netflix series, With Love Meghan, finally debuts this week. According to the streaming service, the lifestyle show will feature the 43-year-old sharing her personal tips and tricks for cooking, gardening, crafting, and hosting. Yes, the wildfires affected a lot of people, but I don't think it was the reason that Megan decided to push her show debuting further. To me, it sounds more like either she wasn't happy with the content, or maybe Netflix wasn't happy with the results that they were getting or the response that they were getting with the content and gave it time to be reworked. So I don't know if you all remember, but at the time when the trailer first debuted, people like RHR Jen and Sidley twins and everybody in this wonderful community started talking about all of the inconsistencies in the trailer and just how inauthentic it looked. There were so many negative comments on the YouTube page for Netflix that showed the trailer, and Netflix did not turn off the comments. So, I mean, Megan, I am positive she saw all of that, and maybe even Netflix saw that and they said, we need to at least calm down, maybe have the audience maybe calm down. But yeah, it didn't work. So then in this article, it says that Megan is going to be sharing her personal tips and tricks. So, Meghan Markle, who famously has once said that toast can be daunting for some people, is going to teach us how to cook. She really thinks we are amateurs. That's one thing to keep in mind that, just she really thinks we're basic. So, the things she's teaching are basic, right? Drop it in the comments if you agree with that. In my opinion, this is a direct ripoff, or everything that she's doing is a direct ripoff of Martha Stewart, Gwyneth Paltrow, and we've seen so much how similar With Love Megan is to Pamela Anderson's show. Narcissists don't create, they copy. They steal ideas and act as if they're innovators. We've seen this over and over and over again. We've seen her try to emulate Diana with that Ray-Ban and her white um, button-down shirt. Her wedding dress was, not an original. It was from another royal wedding. And I'm sorry if I don't have the details, but I'll put the picture here. And if any of you have that information, feel free to drop that in the comments. We've seen her do this philanthropy work, and none of it was true to who she was. It's like she was wearing a uniform for all of them. So she doesn't create anything. She just copies and she just acts like the way she thinks she should be behaving, and she gets it wrong every single time. The article continues, but the show is already being bashed by critics who are quick to compare it to another just released lifestyle program with a similar theme, Pamela Anderson's new Amazon Prime series, Pamela's Cooking with Love. Reviews have already compared the show's similar names and aesthetics, with some fans calling them interchangeable. So here's the real problem. Meghan probably thought she was creating something unique and groundbreaking, but in reality, she's following a trend. And I think this is where her paranoia kicks in. Instead of realizing that she was late to the game, she's convinced someone is trying to sabotage her. The article continues, it all seems to be taking a toll on the former Suits star. As one insider told Women's Day, everyone seems against her right now, and she's paranoid there's a concerted effort to make sure she flops. She doesn't trust anyone these days, even her handlers at Netflix. However, other sources exclusively told Radar Online the truth is much simpler. There is no one setting her up. Her content is just crap. She is just trying to deflect blame for putting out a poor product. So let's look at the first paragraph here. You can see that Meghan is paranoid. This source also is saying that Meghan is paranoid. This is a clear sign of narcissism because narcissists are extremely paranoid. They assume everyone is working against them. The fact that she doesn't even trust her Netflix handlers, who allegedly paid her millions, tells us how far her paranoia has gone. And the last paragraph says it all. This is what narcissists can't handle: accountability. Her content isn't original, it isn't engaging, and it isn't working. But instead of improving or trying to find different angles or just trying to be herself, which of course is a shell of a person, which is why she can't be herself, because there is no true Meghan underneath that exterior that we see, she is blaming it on this imaginary conspiracy. Okay, so now that we've seen how Meghan frames herself as a victim of sabotage, let's talk about why malignant narcissists develop this level of paranoia. The first is this is projection of their own behavior. Narcissists are manipulative and deceitful, so they assume everyone else is the same. Meghan has spent years scheming to get ahead, so now she thinks that people must be scheming against her. It's a projection of her own malice. Malignant narcissists frequently engage in deceit, manipulation, and betrayal, so they assume that others operate the same way. Their paranoia is a reflection of their own behavior. They fear being exposed, outmaneuvered, or humiliated because they do these same things to other people. Their paranoia is also caused by this fear of being exposed. When malignant narcissists start losing control of their image, they panic. Meghan built her brand on the idea that she's successful, she's loved, and she's powerful, and now she's facing public failure. A lot of people that wouldn't talk about her negatively before are coming out and speaking negatively, and she simply can't handle it. There's this hyper vigilance and suspicion. Usually, malignant narcissists constantly scan their environment for perceived threats, often misinterpreting neutral or even positive interactions as hostile. They might believe that people are plotting against them, gossiping about them, or trying to undermine their success. And I'll give you a personal example of this one with my malignant narcissist stepmom. So I've mentioned to you all before about her, but I think I'll give a refresher. So she came into my life when I was very young, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and by the time I turned 13, I want to say, she married my dad. So she is a relative of my mom. Actually, she's a distant cousin of my mom. And in my culture, when you talk to someone that's older to you call them aunt, and then you say their name. And I recognize aunt is usually a direct sister of your mom, but that's not how it is in my culture. You call everybody aunt. And when you refer to them, you could either call them aunt from your mother's side or aunt from your father's side. So imagine me, I'm 11 years old at this time, and my dad is reintroducing my stepmom into our lives, but as his partner rather than my mom's distant cousin. So when I say hi to her, I refer to her from the dad, like I call her dad's side aunt. Imagine me at 11 really thinking this through, already walking on eggshells, trying to decide, do I call her mom aunt or do I call her dad aunt or do I call her by her name? And I was like, okay, if I call her by her name, she's going to say that I'm disrespectful. If I say cousin from my mom's side, she'll get mad because she hates my mom. And okay, the safest one is calling her dad's side aunt. And she attacked me. She was like, "What, do you think I'm your dad's sister?" And I like cowered, because she's a scary woman. And I go into fawn response with my stepmom. Even to this day, I go into fawn response because she scares me so much. Anyways, as a grown woman, but this is speaking to my trauma. Anyways, going back to this, I responded like meekly and I said, I didn't think you'd like it if I called you aunt from my mom's side. Right? Like, look at that, like, she was gonna find fault no matter what I said to her, right? So, she's constantly, like I just said, constantly scanning the environment for perceived threats, and there are none. There were none. I wanted to respect her as my dad's new partner. Anyway, so let's get back to why do malignant narcissists specifically have this like great fear and paranoia? The next reason that could explain it is this victim complex. So instead of taking responsibility, narcissists believe they're being attacked. So Megan has done this over and over again. So look how many times she's blamed other people for her struggles. She's blamed the royal family. She's blamed Spotify for her podcast failure. And now she's blaming Netflix, and she has this big conspiracy that the public is out to get her. Despite their cruelty towards others, malignant narcissists see themselves as the victim. They twist situations to make it appear as though they're the ones being persecuted, even when they are the aggressors. Another thing that contributes to this paranoia is this time and moment when grandiosity and reality collide. Megan believes she's an elite, world changing figure. She thought she was going to be Diana 2.0, and she only needed to do it part time to be able to get there. Delusion, am I right? But now that the world is rejecting her, she can't handle it. Instead of adjusting, she's doubling down on the paranoia. Narcissists often have delusions of grandeur, believing that they are uniquely special or powerful, yet they also believe they're under constant attack by jealous haters or conspiracies. This contradictory mindset fuels their erratic and sometimes dangerous behavior. And it's really important to think about, like, if they're so wonderful, why are they under constant attack, right? So it's contradictory to believe both of these things. Because of their paranoid tendencies, malignant narcissists often strike first or seek revenge for perceived slights. They hold grudges for extended periods and may sabotage or smear those they believe have wronged them. In extreme cases, their paranoia can border on delusional disorder, where they genuinely believe they're being monitored, spied on, or targeted in ways that are entirely detached from reality. This makes me wonder about Megan's insistence on privacy. And this is a whole other topic. I think that Megan really talks about this privacy thing. In the beginning, I think it was to try to pull Harry towards her and trauma bond with him, with the press. And I've done videos about this before, and I also think both her and Harry, when they say privacy, they mean they don't want to be criticized. It's okay if you talk positively about them. They don't want privacy when that happens. They want privacy when they're being, rightfully criticized. Because malignant narcissists don't trust people, they micromanage and isolate those around them. They attempt to control relationships to prevent perceived betrayals, often using tactics like gaslighting, guilt tripping, or emotional blackmail. Malignant narcissists are particularly dangerous because their paranoia, combined with their lack of empathy, can drive them to destructive behaviors. If they perceive someone as a threat, they may engage and will likely engage, in my opinion, in ruthless smear campaigns, manipulation, or even legal and physical intimidation to neutralize their enemy. So, in my opinion, at this point, I believe Megan feels she's cornered. So, let's talk about how malignant narcissists respond when they feel this way. They create false narratives. So, I believe Megan, like she's already saying, and I think is going to continue, she's going to claim that she was mistreated by Netflix, and she may suggest there was a bias against her to explain why her show failed. They also smear their enemies. So I would expect a new PR campaign to shift blame onto Netflix or even Hollywood as a whole for her um, lack of success with Love Megan and as ever. Narcissists destroy those that they see as a threat. And this causes them also to become more isolated. Megan is pushing away allies. We've seen it. She's isolated herself from so many people that could have helped her. And I mean, this reminds me of a story I heard. I believe it was on Dan Wooten's show. And please don't quote me on this. I don't know for certain, but there's this allegation that when Megan signed with WME, there was one day that she marched into Ari Emanuel's, one of the most influential people at WME, and I'm sorry if I get his position wrong, but she marched into his office and was shouting at him. And from that day on, he didn't work with Megan. He just had another person handle that account. So look how she isolated people that can literally help her career. And again, this also ties in with the grandiosity, right? She believes that she's more powerful than Ari Emanuel. He's working for her. So it's totally okay if she goes screaming into his office. What I've noticed in my stepmom and other narcissists that I know, but particularly in my malignant narcissist stepmom, and I see a lot of her in Megan, is that this paranoia can explain their impulsive and self destructive behaviors. Malignant narcissists are known for being impulsive. They lack emotional regulation, so they react based on rage, fear, or desperation rather than logic. They seek immediate gratifications. They want results now without planning for long term consequences, and they self sabotage. Their ego overrides common sense, making them destroy opportunities before they begin. So, why are they so impulsive? They can't handle criticism, so they lash out. They fear losing control, so they make rash decisions. They want revenge, even if it backfires on them. I think Megan's impulsive rebranding and the decisions she's making, you can see this impulsivity, right? She's rebranded multiple times, each time failing and jumping into something new. She constantly, when people criticize her about something, all of a sudden the next day there's a rebuttal for this. It's like she can't sit with failure or criticism. So she's acting impulsively to fix her image. And it just calls more attention to the behavior, but I think Megan just can't help herself. This paranoia and impulsivity are part of the reason why her reputation is being destroyed. Believing that there's a conspiracy against her, I mean, she genuinely thinks that critics, Netflix, and Hollywood are trying to sabotage her. Instead of her realizing her content isn't original, she's creating this imaginary enemy. This paranoia fuels her impulsivity, and she makes desperate moves to fix, in quotation marks, what she believes is an attack. She jumps from one failed idea to the next without thinking it through, and every failure damages her brand further because she never learns from past mistakes. Her quick rebrands scream desperation, making her seem unstable in Hollywood. She's alienating Netflix, Hollywood, and I think at this point, even Harry. If she continues this pattern, she'll be left with no allies. Narcissists push people away when they get too paranoid. So, my final verdict on this is that Meghan Markle is a case study in malignant narcissism. She has the paranoia. She believes she's being sabotaged rather than admitting her content is bad. She's impulsive. She jumps from one failed project to another, desperate to save her image, and self destruction. She pushes away powerful people and ruins her Hollywood chances. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some hypothetical real life scenarios of malignant narcissists exhibiting paranoia, impulsivity, and self destruction. Let's start with a romantic relationship. You're in a relationship with someone who was charming in the beginning, but over time they became paranoid, controlling, and impulsive. Your partner constantly accuses you of cheating or being attracted to other people, even when you've done nothing wrong. They go through your phone, they demand passwords, and interrogate you about innocent interactions. They believe your friends and family are turning you against them. Every small argument leads to extreme reactions. They break things, they block you on social media, or they threaten to leave. They make big impulsive decisions without discussing them, quitting jobs, moving, or cutting people off. If you try to break up, they panic and suddenly propose marriage or rush into having a baby to keep you trapped. Their paranoia and impulsivity push you away until you finally leave. When you break up, they spread rumors about you, claim you were abusive, and say you were the toxic one. They jump into another relationship immediately and they repeat this cycle. This example mirrors Megan in certain ways. So Megan's paranoia about Netflix and Hollywood plotting against her mirrors how these types of partners blame everyone but themselves. She isolated her from former allies, just like a narcissist isolates their romantic partner. And instead of working on issues, she impulsively jumps into new projects and new PR stunts, never reflecting on what went wrong. Let's look at what this could look like in a professional relationship. And in this example, it is your boss that is the malignant narcissist. So you work with them and they start off as charming and confident, but over time they become paranoid, impulsive, and destructive. They believe that coworkers are conspiring against them and they start micromanaging everyone. Even if the company faces setbacks, they blame everyone except themselves, claiming there's a toxic work culture plotting against them. They fire loyal employees for no reason, assuming they're disloyal. Instead of improving their leadership, they suddenly change company strategies with no logic. They launch risky projects without research, then panic when they fail. When someone suggests improvements, they lash out, take it as an attack, or fire the person. This paranoia isolates them, and employees stop trusting them. They're destroying their own reputation and people start leaving the company. Eventually, they lose their position, but instead of accepting fault, they blame a conspiracy. And this is another example that mirrors Megan. Megan distrusts even her own Netflix team, much like this narcissistic boss who believes that their employees are working against them. She makes impulsive career moves instead of improving what she already has, meaning Megan. Just like this bad boss who constantly reinvents things to hide their failures. And when things go wrong, Megan doesn't take accountability, just like this narcissist who blames others for their downfall in this professional example. Okay, the next example is going to be the narcissistic parent. So you have a parent who's highly paranoid, impulsive, and manipulative. They believe other family members are turning you against them. If you try to set boundaries, they claim you've been brainwashed by outside influences. They constantly suspect your success or independence means you think you're better than them. If you express even minor criticism, they lash out or cut you off. They suddenly change the rules, expectations, or family traditions just to reassert control. When they feel threatened, they use emotional blackmail, threatening to cut you out of their will, they guilt trip you, or they make dramatic gestures. Their paranoia drives a wedge between family members. They alienate everyone who once cared about them. And as they get older, they become bitter and resentful, blaming everyone else for their loneliness. This is incredibly similar to Megan's situation, right? She's cut off almost her entire family, much like this narcissistic parent who isolated themselves after pushing people away. Instead of taking responsibility, Megan blames them for everything. And this includes the she did the same with the royal family. Just like how this narcissistic parent in this example rewrites history to play the victim. And Megan, she just burns bridges. We've seen it with royal family, we've seen it with her own family, but she's left a trail of past friendships and relationships. She's ghosted so many there's so many examples of this. And at this point, in my opinion, has no real support system left. Our final example is going to be a toxic and jealous friend. So you have this friend who at first seems so supportive and fun, but over time they became competitive, paranoid, and erratic. They believe you and your other friends are secretly talking about them. If you get a new job or partner or any type of success, they act like you're betraying them by moving on. They accuse you of abandoning them or being part of a clique against them. If you don't text them back immediately, they freak out and block you. They overshare and then regret it, leading to mood swings, and they jump from one obsession to another. One day they love someone, the next day they hate them. Eventually, they push everyone away with this behavior. They talk behind your back, thinking it will make them look better. They end up isolated, but still they blame everybody else. This is very similar to what Megan's done. She has a history of losing friendships. Jessica Mulroney, I think, even though on the surface she seems like she's good friends with Serena Williams, I don't think that that's true. What happened between Megan and Oprah? She's really, I think, burned a lot of these bridges. Part of it could be that she creates imaginary betrayals, just like a toxic friend who sees enemies everywhere. You know what? This triggered my memory. And I believe it's in Tom Bower's book, but the one about the Beckhams, where the relationship between the Sussexes and Beckhams ended because Meghan accused Victoria Beckham of leaking things to the press. So I think there's definitely envy that Meghan has towards Victoria Beckham, and you can see there's also this paranoia that okay, she's obviously leaking things to the press about me. So this is exactly it. She's creating these imaginary betrayals. She impulsively cuts people off, thinking she's always right, leading to her own isolation and loneliness. Malignant narcissists are everywhere. In romance, they may accuse you of cheating, they try to control you and sabotage the relationship. At work, they blame coworkers, act impulsively, and ruin their own career. In families, they isolate themselves, blame others, and rewrite history. And in friendships, they act paranoid, lash out impulsively, and push people away. So, I'm curious to know if any of you have experienced this and if any of these examples might be eye opening for you. I'd love to hear about them. So, drop that in the comments. The last part of this video is going to be pretty raw because I'm going to talk about my stepmom and how that relationship came out. And it's deeply personal. And honestly, as I was doing the research for this video, it really gave me a lot of insight into what happened in my childhood. So, from the moment that I was a child, my stepmom saw me as competition for my dad's attention. Healthy step parents integrate children into the family, but malignant narcissists see them as a threat. She became obsessed with controlling him, and that meant removing me from his life. Her paranoia fueled irrational fears that my presence, would steal his love away from her. This is extreme narcissistic paranoia. In her mind, there was no room for both of us. She viewed me not as a child, but as a rival. And the solution was to create a smear campaign to make sure my father saw me the way she did as a problem. And I want to point out, I was a child. So there is no smear campaign you can have towards a child. But the conflict she created was the real smear campaign. So why did she create this smear campaign? There's two reasons why she probably did this. She manipulated my dad to destroy our bond. Narcissists need full control over their partners. She could have told my dad lies, exaggerated stories, and twisted situations to paint me as a problem. She could have demonized me and told him I was manipulative, disrespectful, or trying to cause drama. And this goes back to that example I gave you about calling her. I was trying to be respectful of her, but look how immediately she tried to turn that into something negative. At that moment, my dad was standing there. So that example he saw, but who knows? And I've blocked out so many of my memories as a child, but who knows what other situations she would have turned around some way, even though I was extremely careful with how I was addressing her or talking to her. I was like terrified of her. Anyways, so she also could have gaslighted him. If he ever expressed guilt about not seeing me, she likely twisted it back on him, and she controlled his emotions. She may have rewarded him for ignoring me and punished him if he showed interest in maintaining our relationship. This is 100% true. Anytime my dad would come and see me, she would fight with him before and after. And I know this because my dad would lose his voice. So I knew that a fight had happened. And my dad and the rest of my family always said that the only problem, can you believe this? Oh my gosh, look how manipulative this sounds. The generation above mine, so my dad's sister, my dad's brother, all of those people, they said that the only problem in their marriage, my dad and my stepmom's marriage, were me and my sister. Can you believe that? No, we were not the only problems. She was the problem. I was a child. I was a child. Anyways, so all of this she had with the goal to make sure I was out of the picture so she could have total dominance over him. I think a lot also what happened, and I heard this from my own dad himself, is that he chose to distance himself to protect me. He had told me that one of my other relatives told him to keep the relationship between him and his wife and children separate. He realized that if he kept seeing me, she would escalate her abuse towards me and him. And by cutting off contact in front of her eyes, he, I think, and I truly believe this, was trying to shield me from her abuse. Which was a lot, and I haven't really talked about it, but yeah. So why would he go along with a smear campaign? If he openly defended me, she would have doubled down. Instead, he may have let her believe she won just to keep the peace, and he secretly kept in touch with me, but not enough to provoke her paranoia. This is the sad reality of narcissistic abuse. Victims learn to play along to avoid triggering the abuser. Sometimes cutting off a loved one is done out of survival and not malice. And as you can see, you can hear from my voice probably that I'm getting a little emotional talking about it, but this really affected me because when I did see my dad, he wouldn't take pictures with me, he wouldn't hug me, he kept an emotional wall up. This was a painful contradiction because I knew he loved me, but he was scared to show it. And the truth of the matter is, she won the battle. She successfully separated us, and it came at a price to me and my dad. My dad missed my graduations, milestones, and a real relationship with me. And in trying to eliminate me from his life, she took away his chance at being a real father to me. Malignant narcissists don't just destroy their targets, they destroy their own families. And I will tell you now, my stepmom doesn't care. She has no regrets over what happened because she got what she wanted. She wanted my dad all to herself, and she got it. So, how does this relate to malignant narcissists everywhere? We see the paranoia. She saw me as a threat and not a child. She created smear campaigns. She painted me as a problem so she could control my dad. She manipulated everybody. She made sure that he saw me through her distorted lens. And, my family saying to me that my dad and her only fought because of me and my sister, that could have been a statement that she would relate to them. And she used emotional blackmail, in my opinion, towards my dad to keep him in check. The lesson here is that narcissists will burn down everything to maintain control, even if it means destroying their partner's relationships, their own marriages, and their own credibility. So, with that, I want to end this video. I'm sorry if it got really emotional towards the end there. I thought it was very important for me to show you where I'm coming from and why I believe Megan is a malignant narcissist. This article being released really points out the paranoia, and it just immediately reminded of my stepmom and her paranoia. And yeah, so I'm curious to know, have you experienced this? Let's talk about it. If you feel comfortable, please go ahead and share your story in the comments. And yeah, I want to thank you all so much for listening. I want to tell you that your story matters. And I just love this community that we've created. And I want to thank you all so much for your support and listening. And I want you all to know, like, yes, the story is very sad what happened in my life, but I wouldn't change any of it. I love, love, love my life. And yeah, I wouldn't change any of it. So, anyways, sorry for dragging on. I'm like rambling on right now. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. If this was interesting to you, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified anytime I drop a new video. And feel free to share this with your friends if you know anyone that has experienced things like this, because unfortunately, I feel we don't talk about it enough. And we let these toxic behaviors, we don't recognize them for what they are. Um, so, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.